Hello, podcast family. Hope you guys are having a great day. I'm your host, Rocky Rourke, and today's episode of Design Break Podcast. If you are a freelancer or design professional aiming to up your game, today's episode is tailor-made for you. We're diving deep into the complex and crucial world of client relationships. In a field that's getting more and more competitive by the day, it's no longer enough to just be another freelancer on the block. You've got to aim to be a true partner to your clients. Now, before we jump into today's episode, I just want to, touch on a little hot topic that I kind of like just experienced not 30 minutes to an hour before this call that kind of delves into client partnerships. So we have a client that we're currently working with, new client, and we went through one round with them. Everything was great. Feedback was terrific. Second round of exploration that we shared with them, things started to deviate. Unfortunately, there was miscommunication, inconsistencies in feedback, and things like that. And it really kind of like set the tone for possibly a negative call with the client. But after discussing with them, after being an active listener, after talking through some of the pain points on our side and on their side, honestly, we turned the call around and we ended up, I feel like, strengthening our partnership. And so sometimes as freelancers, we have to be able to pivot with our clients. Sometimes we have stakeholders that we talk to that, may have other stakeholders ahead of them, or who, may get cold feet on new directions that we are going, whether it's illustration, design, web design, whatever it is. And so we have to be able to pivot. We have to be able to, go a different route. But at the same time, we need to make sure that we manage expectations and manage the way that we interact with our clients. So just something like I wanted to talk about briefly before we jumped in that, today's episode, we're talking about client partnerships. And that's kind of what I was working on today with one of our current clients. I was reiterating to them that, we're their client, we're their partner. In this, we're in the trenches with them and everything. And so it's very important that, we make that clear, that we're not just going to fire them, if things turn bad, or we're not going to check out or give them mediocre, products or anything like that. We want them to feel like, we understand their needs, and we do understand their needs. We understand what they're going through, and that it's not something that's necessarily unique to them, but something that a lot of startups tend to experience, or sometimes are pain points that all experience. So just something to keep in mind there. And also, before we jump in, let's actually give a shout out to this week's listener of the week. I can't remember. I think we may have already given him a shout out, so I do apologize if we have. Of course, I don't think that he will be upset about it. But this week's listener of the week Jeez, listen to me. Is Cam Hoff at CAMHOFF on Twitter. Thank you so much, Cam, for sharing a lot of the stuff that we have been putting out, as well as interacting with tweets. And I believe Cam has even left a podcast review. So I really appreciate it. Thank you so much, Cam. And if you would like to be a listener of the week, all you have to do is interact with us on Twitter, liking our posts, retweeting, responding to posts and everything, letting us know like what you liked about this week's episode, what you didn't like about this week's episode. We love all feedback, whether it's positive or negative, because it helps us grow and get better as a podcast. As well as you should, as a freelancer, is you should always be looking for growth, even if it's negative feedback. All right, without further ado, let's jump back into today's topic. So we're not just talking about buzzwords here. Being a partner means a seismic shift in how you approach your work, your clients, and even how you think about yourself as a freelancer or creative professional in general. It's about transitioning from a mere order taker to a problem solver, a trusted consultant who brings unparalleled value to the client's business. And this is whether it's for a SaaS client, a tech client, whether it's for B2B or B2C or D2C, a lot of big abbreviations there. So I do apologize. Hopefully you guys know what those are. And if you don't, definitely go look them up. Maybe we should do an episode on definitions for stuff like that. But no matter what, the philosophy holds universally true. So, in today's episode, we're going to guide you through this mindset shift that can catapult you from being just another freelancer to being an invaluable asset for your clients. We'll discuss the core principles that underpin a fruitful partnership, like transparency, mutual respect, and shared goals. And trust me, this is not just theory. This is exactly what I practice. In fact, I practice it today, like I said in the hot topic. We're going to share actionable steps that you can implement right away to strengthen your client relationships, strategies around onboarding, regular check-ins, and even what to do once the project wraps up to ensure a lasting relationship. So as we, delve into this, we'll also touch on how to strategically brand, and position yourself in the market. You ever wondered, how some freelancers seem to effortlessly attract new clients? It's no accident. It's a lot of hard work, and it's a lot of focus on not just being a freelancer, but being a client partner. So keep your notepads ready or open up a note-taking app, because you're going to want to capture all of this. So let's kind of talk about this first part, right? The mindset shift. This is very, very important. From going from order taker to problem solver. This is very important, not just for freelancers, but also for designers in general. It's what, separates people who make 5 figures in design to making 6 figures in design. It's very, very important. Once you make that shift from being, an order taker to actually being able to solve problems for your clients and for the companies you work for, it changes the game completely. So with the order taker mindset, many freelancers start a project by asking the client, what they want, and then they proceed to execute upon that request. They focus on going from A to B. That's their whole point, And so while that fulfills the short-term need of the client, it limits your ability to provide value in the long run, right? This leads very easily to one-off engagements with clients. So you end up working with a single client and you stay with that client for one project and then you move on, or they move on in particularly. They go from one freelancer to another and they're just looking for someone that can just, take orders and just do whatever it is that they need, as opposed to a problem solver mindset. Instead of merely fulfilling tasks, you take time to understand the client's underlying business, challenges, and goals. And then you use your design expertise to propose solutions that may not even have been on the client's radar to begin with. And so this is a good example of one of my long-term clients. In fact, today I'm going to be signing a new contract with them. We've been working together for almost a year. I'll be a year in December, if I'm not mistaken. And with them, they originally brought me on to be a kind of fractional creative director and to create some new designs for their homepage. From there, I was able to kind of point out some issues that they had, point out some major inconsistencies with their brand. And then they, signed a contract for 6 months where 3 months initially, where we started working on creating a design system for their marketing and brand teams. From there, we've signed, this will be the third contract since we've worked together. And so it's amazing to see what, being a problem solver, because they had never even thought about having a design system for their actual marketing and brand team. They only looked at that as something for product design, maybe web and things of that nature. And so by showing them that, how I've used design systems with other brand and marketing teams, I was able to show them this is actually a real world problem. This is a solution that I have done in the past for other clients and something that could work for them. And that was kind of the gateway. We ended up not starting on that project until probably 6 months into actually working with them. In fact, it was the, I think, second contract where we actually started working on that. But since then, I've become a very integral part in helping them find solutions to their problems, but also pointing out problems that they didn't know they had to begin with. Now, that's not saying that I'm creating problems for them. I'm pointing out things that they may not have had on their radar otherwise. And so it's very, very important. So basically moving from this task-oriented mindset to a problem-solving mindset elevates the relationship. So they don't just look at me as another freelancer, as another designer, right? They actually have other partners that they work with specifically for churning out designs, being kind of like production designers. And instead, what they look at me for is they look at someone who can, number one, find and solve problems for them. And number two, can also set the stage for those other freelancers, other contractors that they work with to kind of solve their problems. So by figuring out, okay, this is how we're going to accomplish this. This is how we're going to accomplish that. This is what you don't do. So like basically being the rule maker for their brand. And so by doing that, by being that problem solver, I've elevated myself within their psyche for their consultancies, and it's really helped out in the long run. you know, you really have to invest in understanding, their business. That's something else too, is I generally take now, whenever I sign a new contract or sign a new long-term project with a client, I take at least a few days to kind of dive deep into who they are, what they do. I have them fill out a very long brand questionnaire. And then I delve in and ask questions. I delve in and ask any types of questions that may be relevant, that they, about their industry, about their challenges, their objectives, so that I can be more valuable to them, so that I can provide them with value that's not just about this initial engagement or this initial problem that they want me to solve for them. And so, many times, like I will even flat out ask them, what are some of your biggest pain points that you're currently having? It's not about, okay, what does this what's a specific problem that you're having me work on, but what are some problems you might have to begin with? And one client actually went and listed out, okay, so these are the main pain points that I have. Some clients will answer in detail, some won't. But one client in particular, they actually outlined, okay, these are the top three things that I'm currently having issues with. Number one, it's taking so long for us to churn out new campaigns for our marketing side. Number two, a lot of stuff that we're putting out there is inconsistent. It's not designed the same or doesn't feel cohesive with our brand. And so those two things instantly tell me, okay, they don't have something like a design system set up. They don't have rules or maybe even a brand guidelines that's up to date that they stick to or that they share with their contractors or their internal design team. And so I'm able to see, okay, there's two possible solutions right there for those two main pain points. One is a design system, which is very lengthy. It can take a long time, but once implemented, it can save, sometimes up to 50%, if not more, of the time to create assets. It means that they'll be able to work so much quicker and probably have less need for as many freelancers. Or number two is a simple brand guidelines or brand toolkit that can kind of lend to the consistency or at least the rules in which they're looking for. So I'm able to like point those things out or figure those things out just from that branding questionnaire. So here are some like core principles for being a partner for your clients. The first one is transparency. The importance of being honest and open in your communication with your client. It's very like it's spectacularly important. It's I'm trying to think of the right adjectives for this, but it's very important to be transparent, and to be transparent not only about your process, but in the way that you communicate, in the way that you're thinking. For instance, that example that I had in the hot topic, right? I was very open with the client. I let them know, like, you know, it's kind of disappointing, to hear the inconsistency in, from the first round to the second round's feedback. And I told them, I'm not, frustrated. I'm not at that point. I'm not frustrated with the feedback, but I am disappointed in the fact that there is inconsistencies. And so I was very honest with them. I was very transparent. And I was able to take that and then spin it to figure out, okay, but based on what you said, I think this is the best path forward for this. And we were able to figure this thing out together. But I was very transparent in the way that I felt. And the really great thing about this client was that they actually went so far as to apologize, which is great. It's a great thing to see that. And they even took some responsibility for the issue at hand. And that is actually very rare. For those of you who've been working with as a freelancer, for a client to take responsibility for a major blunder, or it's not even really a major blunder, but any blunder period is kind of rare. And so, that was a very major stepping stone in the right direction with them. We're not in a long-term project or long-term engagement with them, but I think it might come because of this like strengthening moment for us. And this then kind of like leads into the next principle, the second principle, which is mutual respect. And so what that conversation did was the client was able to respect me, the freelancer, the studio owner, in that, I was very fair and open with my thoughts and feedback to them. But then also at the same time, it showed mutual respect from their side of things, that they took responsibility for certain errors and everything. So that was a major part. You want that mutual respect. It is not one-sided. If the client doesn't respect you, then you're not going to have a strong partnership with your client. But at the same time, if you don't respect the client, there is no partnership. There's no hope, because if you're going to like talk down about them or berate them, or if they talk down and berate you, it's not going to work. There's no respect in there. So there has to be a bit of mutual respect. And then the final part of this, the third core principle is shared goals. So emphasizing, how alignment on objectives can like really strengthen the partnership. So for instance, with another client that we had a few months ago, they were in the middle of a major brand launch. And the biggest thing that we understood and they understood was like we had a short timeline to get all of the stuff done. We were working on their web and we were working on illustrations for the web. And so the biggest issue that was coming about was there was kind of similar to what's happening now with this other client, is there were additional stakeholders that were added. And so they weren't part of the process at the beginning. And so we had to basically play catch up, and we had to go through and make a lot of revisions and changes. But both parties, both us and the client, understood like we had specific goals and deadlines for this project. At the time, I think it was like 3 weeks out from the launch. And we were really running thin on how much time we could take in order to implement all these changes. So we were able to figure out a way of working around that. And sometimes it's either adding more time or adding more budget. In that particular instance, we were able to add more time. In another world, it would probably be adding more budget. And some clients, if they understand, that, you have shared goals, you want to make sure that you get the best quality work out there for them, they are happy to add time or to add budget. And a lot of times it's going to actually be the latter. It's going to be adding budget, which means more money in your pocket at the end. It still means they're going to take more time from you, but ultimately that can sometimes lead to a very, very great partnership with them, because you've been through the trenches with them. You've experienced all of that with them. And so that really kind of lends us like camaraderie with the client as well. So now let's kind of talk about some like tangible steps to becoming a partner. So these are some like very like rough things that you can do to kind of like show that you're a partner with the client, show that you're, wanting to be collaborative, or you're wanting to really understand them. So the first part is, strategic onboarding. Use an onboarding process to kind of set the stage for a collaborative partnership. So explaining to them the whole step of the way, the whole process for the engagement, sharing with them like how you're going to be communicating, how often you're going to be communicating, asking them if they have any questions or if they have any suggestions to how the process should be. So not just like dictating to them the process, but allowing them to interject or to add any additional pieces to it, or add any additional pieces to the process, like having weekly check-ins if that's needed. Of course, I hate check-ins. I hate meetings, period, but I will jump on a call if I need to, especially to keep my partner happy. So, and that kind of goes into the next thing, which is regular check-ins. So, have a specific like setup for periodic meetings. For instance, right now, what we do is generally we will share our work or deliverables on a specific day. Usually it's like a Thursday or Friday. And then we give the client anywhere between one day to the weekend to kind of give us any and all feedback that they have, jumping back in on Monday to make any edits or make any updates based on their feedback. And so, making sure to stick to that schedule is very important. Now, there are things that happen to where you can't stick to that schedule, and the clients understand that life happens. So it's okay if like you have to, push things out a day or so, but let the client know ahead of time. If something happens where you're sick, let the client know like, hey, just want to give you a heads up. I'm kind of feeling under the weather today. I'm going to work through the rest of the day. But there is a good possibility I might have to take tomorrow off, and I might have to push out my deadline a little bit, and offer to them, things like, but you know what? I'll make sure I can work, some time over the weekend. And I'll get that to you as soon as possible. Offering concessions for things like that is very, very important. But the last part of this, one of the biggest steps that can really show that you're a partner with them versus just being a freelancer, is going beyond the brief. By offering to your client, proactive suggestions on certain pieces of design that you have experience with, can really kind of demonstrate your investment in the client's success. So like offering to the client, basically, here's a couple of thoughts that we actually had on this illustration, or offering to the client like, hey, I noticed that you guys were doing this and this and this to the website. What if you did this instead? Maybe this might help to simplify things. The client partner that I mentioned earlier that we've now been working with for almost a year, we do this all the time, where we will sometimes be asked to kind of be a creative director for them, where we'll review web pages, we'll review explorations that their external and internal team have done, and kind of give them thoughts and feedback. And, I'm sometimes in those meetings with high level stakeholders, people who are in charge of brand marketing, demand gen, sometimes even C-suite people like head of marketing. And the number one thing is I am not afraid to offer suggestions to them. Now, and I always tell them, take it with a grain of salt. This might not be the right thing, but here's a suggestion that may work. And so even in those instances, even if they don't decide to go that route or listen to that feedback, I'm still providing them potential value, and that speaks volumes. All right. So then with all that being said, with talking about, how to become a partner, and then some tangible steps in order to become a partner, let's actually talk quickly about client retention. So this is something that's also very important, because if you become a client partner at the beginning, but you guys don't work together, if you don't continue to work together beyond that first engagement, what is it for? Right? You want a client that is with you for a long time, months, if not years. Shoot, let's go for even decades, right? And so being proactive versus being reactive is very important. So by anticipating your client's needs or problems that might arise can be very invaluable. One instance that is, I think, very important, this goes for any illustrators or web designers, product designers, is watching out for design debt. This is something I need to do a full episode on what exactly is design debt and how to combat it. But design debt is probably one of the biggest crippling things when it comes to design for startups. And what it basically is any little thing that you put off. So let's say you don't fix your type styles for a specific web page or the full website that you're designing for the client. Let's say you say, you know what, this is good enough for now. We'll come back and we'll update, the text later on. Then what happens is over time, that same style that you're going to go and update later on becomes so ingrained within your designs, within the fabric of the brand itself, that by the time you go to fix it, you now have this mountain of design debt that you have to go through and fix across, let's say, 50 web pages. I've been there. I've experienced it. I've had to clean up those mistakes from other people. It can be very detrimental, especially if you're a startup where, it's not just one thing, it's more like 50 to 100 different types of design debt that you have to then go and find and fix. And it is something that is very, very important to catch early on. Where when you're talking to a client, you're like, what's this little thing right here? And they said, oh, it's something that we talked about changing later on. It's good for now. Just note taking that and making sure to, remember, here's a little piece of design that they might want to fix, and offering that to the client, saying something like, by the way, I know on the call last week, we were kind of going over, the homepage, and I noticed this one little thing that was kind of off. And I want to make sure that it doesn't turn into a bigger issue later on. I think it's something that we should tackle. If you like, I can go ahead and tackle it for you and do this. That adds a little bit of value, actually a lot of value when you look at the grand scheme of things. And clients sometimes will be very receptive of that. They'll be very happy that you even offered, or that you even caught that, because they're going to forget all about it. And then the other thing too is the aftercare. This is a big part of client retention. Once a project is done, the partnership has not ended. It doesn't end. Offering tips and valuable information to the client over time is very important. I try and have regular check-ins with my clients anywhere between month to every 3 months, depending on who they are, depending on their needs and things like that. And so I regularly will check in with them, not just not just with things like, hey, how are you doing? Is there anything that you need help with? I'll check in with them and be like, hey, I just saw that you guys accepted an award from so-and-so magazine. That is so awesome. I'm so happy for you. Or saying like, I remember you had a pain point a while back that was you couldn't figure out how to fix X, right? And so by providing with them maybe a couple articles on that specific pain point or solution, for free, is sometimes like very important and can really go a long way. Then, next thing you know, they're emailing you like, oh, hey, by the way, I just was talking to our marketing manager, and we actually could use some help on this, this, and that. And now you have work with that client. Or even they might be like, you know what, I miss working with you. I would love for us to continue our relationship. How about we sign a retainer? So very important. Client retention is probably one of the things that a lot of freelancers out there neglect or don't even think about altogether. So it's very important that you do so. And then the last little thing that we're talking about in today's episode, is positioning and branding. So this is something too that a lot of freelancers, a lot of designers out there, you think about when you need to, like in the moments where you have no client work, or you find yourself without a job, or you're getting back into freelancing, and all of a sudden you're like, oh crap, I don't have case studies, I don't have stuff on my website. What am I going to do? So it's very important that you're constantly setting aside pieces for your portfolio, slowly like creating case studies over time. One thing that I've been working on is something I need to finish actually, is I've been working on a template for case studies in Notion. And so what I've done is I've set up a template where I have everything listed out. I have a testimonial section where I get a testimonial from the client. I have key results that we achieved with the client. So by following up with them, remember, follow up aftercare, following up with them and asking them, how did everything go with this project? Was there any like key metrics or analytics that you can share with me? Like maybe the project, helped them land $60 million in funding. That happened to a client of mine about 6 months to a year ago. So it's like those types of metrics are very important, and they're great to include in case studies. But by going ahead and having that template set up where I can just go and punch in all these things, and then when it comes time for actually putting together a new case study on my website, I can just go back to this, grab that information, plug it in, and we're good to go. But the other two thing is, thinking about becoming somewhat of a thought leader. Now, let me just add a caveat there. I am not talking about becoming a fake freelance guru. Do not do that. Do not become one of those people. I'm talking about, becoming a thought leader for the client facing side of it. By sharing your expertise, the things that you have learned, working with clients, and whether it's clients you are going to be talking to directly or past clients or whatever it is, previous jobs, it's very important that you share those expertise with others. Part of the reason why in my new client questionnaires that I send to every client, I ask, what are some of your pain points that you're currently experiencing, is because a lot of times clients have those exact same pain points. And so I am slowly collecting a list of all of these pain points that are client facing, not freelancer facing, not designer facing, client facing, that I can then go and write blog posts about. I can create YouTube content for. I can, write up playbooks or other documents that I can then share with clients that will bring them value and show them of the value that I can provide. So it's very important to become, kind of a thought leader in the client facing space. And you don't have to do it necessarily super openly. I am an expert in everything to do with marketing for SaaS companies. That's not what I'm saying. This can just be, being a thought leader directly one-on-one with clients, as you go, or, sharing your thoughts in blog content that you have on your website. So, wow, like what a journey, this whole episode has been that we've taken today. Diving into the intricacies. Wow, I am horrible with words. Yes, we are keeping this into this episode because this is funny. Diving into the intricacies. There we go. Diving into the intricacy. And you get the word. I feel like you guys get the word of evolving from a freelancer into a true design partner, for your clients. So we've tackled the mindset shifts, discussed the nitty gritty of establishing mutual respect and transparency. And all of that is very important in basically putting together and putting yourself in the right frame of mind, right, stance to becoming a client partner or becoming your client's partner. If you ever are on the fence about how important client relationships are to growing your freelancing business, I hope today's episode has kind of like tipped the scales into you focusing on that. And so I want to leave you with this. Being a partner is not a label. It's an ongoing commitment. It's an ongoing relationship with your clients. It's a commitment to understand your clients, to align with their goals, and use your skills to solve their most pressing problems. It's not a one-time effort, but a consistent process of engagement, improvement, and evolution. Trust me, it's a win-win situation. Your clients get more value and you get the kind of rewarding, long-lasting relationships that can sustain and grow your business. It's not just about doing more, it's about being more. Being more is very, very important. So before we sign off, if you found value in today's episode, do us a favor, hit the subscribe button on wherever it is you're listening to today's podcast, whether it's YouTube or Apple Podcasts. If you're on Apple Podcasts or any other of the podcasting platforms, please leave a review. Your support helps us reach more freelancers like you looking to elevate their creative careers. Also, don't forget to check out the show notes for links to resources, articles, and things like that down below in today's episode. Thank you guys so much for being such an amazing audience. And remember, in the world of freelancing, you're not just designing visuals or websites, you're designing relationships, partnerships, and ultimately your own future. So, really remember to always stay passionate, stay positive, and stay creative. Catch you guys on the next episode of Design Break Podcast. Thank you guys so much. Goodbye.